What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I've got for you 4 crazy revenge stories, starting with this one, which has a couple of updates, so you know it's going to get juicy, in which this woman's abusive mum bans her from her grandfather's funeral and ends up trying to disown her from her entire family. I mean, it's a pretty crazy title, but it's a pretty crazy story, and there are 3 more to come after that, so lock in. Get ready for this one. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more content like this in the future. Here we go. Abusive mum had me disowned by entire family and banned from grandfather's funeral. This woman is insane. She has her entire side of the family wrapped around her finger, despite her being completely unhinged and psychopathic. She abused me and my sibling our entire lives, but she got less physical as she aged, and I thought that she'd fixed herself. Turns out, she just got sneaky. She's always telling lies that make herself out to be some victim, and over recent years, she's decided that I'm the one she wants to portray as her abuser since I became vocal about her abuse of me. I cut contact with her a year ago when I found out she was drip feeding my family lies about me. Nasty stuff like she was raising my children because I'd abandoned them. She lived on my street, so she just saw them for a few minutes every other day. She'd been telling the family that I had terrible mental illness and not to bother me, explaining why most of them had barely returned my calls or messages in months. When I told them about my mother's lies, they looked at me like I was having an episode, and no one supported me. My grandfather died a week ago. He was my absolute world, and I'm devastated. Then, a few days ago, I get a call from my mother telling me that I've been disowned and I'm banned from attending the funeral. Her story as to why did not make sense whatsoever, and she flitted between telling me my grandmother must have said I'm disowned because she's mentally ailing, and mentioning that I'd said that my late son was not allowed to be mentioned in the funeral service. This absolutely did not happen. I never said this, to be clear. All of my family have blocked me. They're refusing to answer voicemails, calls, texts, even the door to me. None of them even bothered to contact me to ask what happened, and none of them will hear my side. They just took her at her word that I'm this monster after probably years of groundwork was laid by my mother. I've got no clue what she said or done, but I've done nothing to warrant this. 0 drama, 0 negative words crossed. I sent flowers, sympathy cards, called, and gave condolences to everyone just before this kicked off, and everyone was kind and receptive. Unfortunately, I know that she's likely made up some terrible lie, hurting my bereaved elderly grandmother at the time of a most devastating loss, as well as the rest of my family, by stirring up drama in my name that I'm completely innocent of. She's robbed me of my ability to say my last goodbye to my grandfather. She's robbed me of the rest of my family. She has them all believing that I'm some monster, and the worst part is, I don't even know what she's accusing me of, because it was clearly so bad that they've all got me blocked on everything. They're refusing to return my calls and messages, even when I've explained that I've got no idea what is going on. Her last control over me was to devastate my grandmother in my name, ruin my reputation, and break my heart by causing me to be disowned and banned from the funeral. I'm at a literal snapping point now. She's gone too far. Smashing her windows and flooding the house with a hose pipe for the 5 hours she'll be at the funeral isn't enough. Help me out here. What can I do to make this thing suffer without landing myself in prison? Heck, I have a clean record and I'd probably get off without prison time for most crimes at this point. So I'm open to suggestions. I beg of you, this woman needs comeuppance. Okay, so there we go. That is it for the first post. Now, immediately, guys, I want you to get in the comments down below and let me know what you think in regards to the funeral. Should OP go? We're going to get a funeral update in just a second regarding what happened there. But before we get into that, drop your comments down below. What do you think OP should do? I mean, they've been disowned. I don't know if legally or whatever. They've been banned from the funeral. I'm not entirely sure how. I guess the grandma, right? OP's grandma has now gone along with her mum and said that she's banned. Just crazy, the manipulation that your mum OP has on the entire family is absolutely unbelievable. But as I said in the intro, there's a funeral update to come and then another further update. So without further ado, let's get into the first update. I mean, just quickly, it's worth me mentioning, I think you have to go to the funeral. We'll see what happens. But if you don't go to the funeral, it's an absolute disgrace. It's not what your grandfather would have wanted, even though you're banned. Anyway, enough waffle, let's see what happened. Okay then, so here we are, the funeral updates. I went with my friend on copious amounts of anxiety meds. We were quickly seated and the service was lovely. Afterwards, I just walked past the family straight to the car with my head held high. One relative, my granddad's daughter-in-law, his son from a previous marriage's wife, sent me a kind message almost immediately after, saying she saw me and hoped I was alright. She said she'd have spoken to me to check in on me if she'd see me afterwards, but obviously I didn't hang around. We had a chat. It's nice to know there's one person, even if it's a distant relative, that isn't a flying monkey. I'm so proud that I fought through my anxiety and went. My alarm this morning said, "Do it for Granddad." Oh my gosh. I honestly don't know if I'd have had the courage to go without all of your words and encouragement, so thank you so much. Because of you all, I didn't let her win. I mean, that is great to hear, and I'm going to be honest, like looking through the comments on the original post and seeing how many comments OP replied to is actually insane. And you might think that sometimes people say, "Oh, thanks Reddit for the tips and advice," and they're just like, you know, they read a few comments and that's sort of that. They end up making their own mind up, if you want to be cynical like me. But I mean, I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through the comments that OP has replied to on their profile. And it's crazy the influence that Reddit must have had. So, you know what? Fair play to Redditors. I probably don't say it enough, but, you know, it's a strange old community, but it's very tight-knit. And sometimes when they see wrong, or when they know that something must be changed and must be done, they really do give great advice. One tip, actually, if you ever got a question in life and you want to use the internet to try and find some sort of help, type in your question or type in the topic and then put the word Reddit afterwards, and that will bring up answers from Reddit, and they're almost always so much better than answers that are from generic articles or just from the internet in general. That's what I always do, and I could not recommend it enough, because you get real answers and real help from real people just like this. However, don't worry guys, there is actually one more update to come. It's the final update for now, I suppose, although this was posted just a couple of weeks ago. But let's get into it, the final update of this story. But the final update is that my aunt sent me weird messages after the funeral, still refusing to tell me what was said or what I'd done. It was confusing because she went between anger and telling me she'd hug me so tight the next time she saw me. She said she needed space, so we left that interaction on what seemed like a positive note. Oh, and it was wild that she said she didn't see me at the funeral, and if I'd have seen you, I'd have hugged you and brought you to the front row with us. And when I said I was sitting at the back, devastated, watching my family at the front row, unable to be there, supporting my sobbing grandmother, my aunt replied, "Oh yes, that was me. I actually asked your mother to tell you to stay away from us all." It seemed very bipolar. I asked her if there was any reason why no one would tell me directly what I was being accused of, and she didn't answer. She just said that she needed time. Right, okay. Now, I'd already decided I'd be cutting contact after this. The hurt was too much, but I'd hoped she'd eventually clarify the situation to me with time for my own closure. A couple of days after her last message to me, my aunt messaged my ex-husband trying to deliver a birthday gift for my son to his house personally instead of to mine. He politely replied that he didn't want to get involved, having had no contact with my family in years, and to either deal with me or send any gifts in the post. She replied with quite a nasty message. It actually read like it was written by my mother, which would explain the projection that happened later, saying that his reply clearly came from me and that I was using the children as weapons and to control people. Wow, how ironic. This entire conversation happened while I was blissfully unaware of all of it, having thought my aunt would be in touch soon to speak about what happened and mentioning giving her space. No one had asked me if they could see my children or contacted me personally about birthday gifts for my son. I'd have likely facilitated that for his birthday. but they went through my ex-husband, and when he said he didn't want to be involved with my family, we've been separated now for 5 years, my aunt insulted my ex and me, accused me of generally being a trashy person, said I was manipulating my ex with my version, that maybe there's a reason she won't let you hear our version because it won't be the same as hers. Tell him your version, please. Then I'd actually get to hear what I've done. Again, they were accusing me of horrid things and saying and doing things that I was entirely innocent of. And I knew nothing about it until he sent me the screenshots of their messages, his reply, and my aunt's final response lashing out. It was the last straw. I blocked them all and changed my phone number. I've no idea what's wrong with these people, but I never did find out what I was accused of. I thought my aunt was on her way to being ready to tell me about it soon, and I gave her the space she requested. Then a few days later, she was just spewing vitriol towards me and accusing me of more trash I didn't do and making wild assumptions. Again, all without ever speaking to me. I managed to become the bad guy all over again, and they likely will always believe their version. It's okay, I know mine. It just sucks. It just really cemented it for me that my mother must have been laying the groundwork for this for years, because I've had nothing but polite interactions with the family for years, and this clearly shows a high level of hostility about me and my character. This couldn't have happened overnight, or with just one lie, surely. Yeah, OP, I completely agree, and it just makes it very confusing. I mean, to be honest, I'm confused, and I'm not involved in this story in any way, obviously. So I can't imagine how you feel. Like, imagine, actually put yourself in OP's shoes for a second. Like, I'll try and do it myself. All of a sudden, your entire family is just looking at you shadily, and they're not telling you what's going on. And you're trying to be your normal self with them, but they're being all like weird and standoffish. And then I suppose over the years, you work out that one of them really just detests you. Then you're not allowed to go all of a sudden to your granddad's funeral. I mean, that is mental, by the way. I went to my granddad's funeral, about a year ago now. And I was going to say it was great. It really wasn't great. But you know what I mean? It was lovely to be there. And it meant a lot being there. I can't imagine not being allowed to be there. It'd be ridiculous. Like, sorry, I can't. Wow, it was great. We had a great time. We did. It was lovely. You know what I mean? Okay, be serious for a second. But what I will say is this. Your family, and maybe it's just your mother, but I also put a massive blame on everyone else for just siding with her and not, like, doing their due diligence, reading between the lines and thinking, maybe I should actually qualify these statements that she's making. And again, we have no idea what they are, so it's tough to say what you're being accused of. But yeah, maybe think to yourself, maybe I should actually just think, maybe what I'm hearing is a little bit off. Let me find out the truth, or at least let me find out the other side of the story by speaking to you. But no, you're just going along with your mum. It's strange. And we haven't even talked about the abuse. Mental story, but somehow that's only the first one in this episode. There are 3 more to come. Let's get on to the second. You want us to break up? Fine. My mother-in-law is truly awful. She constantly makes remarks about me not deserving my fiancé. We are a sort of modern couple, with him bringing in 70% of the money and doing about 30% of the household chores, and me vice versa. It's not an exact math, of course, but we're content with the workload and bill division. And that should be that, by the way. That's a great balance. Congrats. Anyway, my mother-in-law thinks that I should do all the chores and calls my job a small part-time gig that I should be happy to do to help out without neglecting my duties. My fiancé disagrees, but going low contact is difficult when his father and his sister-in-law, my brother's wife, and I have gotten so close. So my fiancé, his brother and sister-in-law and I schemed to have me break up with him in front of his mum and just leave a wake of disastrous consequence to show her. Wow, that is so conniving and so good. That is actually unreal. So that's crazy. So let me get this straight. You, your fiancé, his brother, and then his wife, and also your fiancé and his brother's dad are all pranking your fiancé's mum? That is phenomenal. Okay, let's carry on. When she next made a remark at New Year's about it being time for him to find a traditional wife, I said she was right, and I broke it off. She was shocked immediately and tried to walk it back. My fiance had a meltdown begging me to stay while my brother-in-law and his wife instigated by asking my mother-in-law if she was racist. They didn't tell me about this part, but it was funny because she doesn't seem to be racist in any real way. She started to panic as I stormed out, and my fiance moved back home and has been bugging her to do all the things that I do on the daily, cooking and helping him with his New York time puzzles. And by the way, New York time puzzles are elite. And steaming his clothes and claiming she owes him for making me leave. So this woman has been calling me non-stop, begging to talk, and after just 8 days, she showed up at my work to full-on apologize, complete with a confession that blew me away. She legit admitted to thinking that I loved him enough to let her say whatever without consequence, and assumed that bugging me would get me to do more for her son so that he could have more time for her and time to relax. He currently works long hours, as owning a home is a goal for us, and though I also work doubles, she thinks that customer service isn't as hard as IT, even though working with the public is super exhausting. Okay, she's dumb then. I would think that customer service is much harder than IT, not knowing much about either sector, but goodness me, one involves working with people all the time, and we all know what people can be like. I mean, evidence this story. The other is IT. Yeah, a bit more technical, sure, but it's IT. Anyway, she cried and begged me to take him back and said he was lazy. When I, in air quotes, reluctantly agreed, she promised to leave me alone, and the next day sent me a gift basket with C's candy in it. My fiance admitted he started to be extra needy to her on purpose after the second day because he missed me and wanted to drive her crazy enough to get her to apologize quick. What a phenomenal story. I mean, this is just a phenomenal story. After the severity of the first one, to get a story like this as the second is just so good. Like, I just love that everyone bought into it so much. Your fiance even moving back in fully to sell this. It's just like, it's so good. Imagine the mum just being like, oh my God, what have I done? I have ruined my son's life and also my son's ex's life for what? Just because I wanted my son to have a bit more free time? Like, she must not have slept for this period of time. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. So good. Now, I don't know about C's candy. I looked it up just to see if it was an actual thing. Pun not intended and not a pun. Apparently, it's a quite a nice candy. Somebody said in the comments, you know it's serious when C's candy gets involved. So yeah, maybe it's like the equivalent of I don't know, getting somebody flowers to apologize. It's top tier stuff, which I suppose makes sense. But yeah, genuinely wonderful story. But sadly, guys, that is the last fun story of this episode, and things now get slightly more serious once again. Revenge on a terrible neighbor. Years ago, I rented a townhouse while working on a studio contract. The house was nice, 2-bedroom that I shared with my girlfriend, now my wife. There was a single attached garage, which is a main part of the story. The next door neighbor, who we'll call Chad, was a real piece of work. He was mid-30s, balding, which he tried to hide with a buzz cut, and one of the shortest men I've ever met. He compensated for his lack of height by having a giant lifted custom pickup truck that was too tall to park in his garage. His other pride and joy was a heavily modified Honda Civic, which he liked to rev the engine loudly most days. Chad had 4 friends who he'd sit with at the end of his driveway and drink beer with all day, leaving empty cans everywhere. When I started renting the house in the spring, Chad was initially friendly, offering to move his car to allow the movers to easier access the house. He parked in both spots, despite a visitor lot right across the street. After the movers left, Chad mentioned that the previous tenants let him use their garage for his car in the winter, as his was full of exercise equipment and the sweet motorcycle he was building. Goodness me, I mean, that is crazy. Just asking to use and actually being allowed to use someone else's property. The old tenants must have been very nice, fair play. I told him that the landlord hadn't given me the key or the access code yet, and the only way I could open the garage was from the inside. Chad mentioned that neither his keys nor the code he had worked anymore either. A bit later, when I was talking to the landlord and mentioned Chad and the garage, he told me to never share the code, the keys, or the garage itself with Chad. The previous tenants had been robbed just after Christmas, the reason why they moved away, and the landlord suspected that Chad and his friends had been the ones responsible. despite there being no evidence. Wow. The landlord changed the locks and access code as part of cleaning up the house for a next tenant. A month or so later, I learned from another neighbor that Chad's dad had been a local cop and died when Chad was a teenager, and the police gave him a pass on disturbance calls and the like, something he took advantage of. Chad kept pressuring me to give him access to my garage and got really angry when I finally told him no. Maybe his temper stemmed from his lack of height or some other factor, but he was upset enough that his friends had to hold him back from physically attacking me. From that point on, I'd find empty beer cans on my lawn. He and his friends would catcall my wife when they saw her alone. He would park his truck blocking access to my driveway, would blast music at all hours of the day and night, and just do other things to make a nuisance of himself. As winter came, things got worse, as he was no longer allowed to park his truck on the street and was denied parking in the visitor lot. Later, some kids vandalized the car cover to his Honda and scratched the paint, which he blamed on me for not letting him use my garage. After the new year, I found all of my exterior Christmas decorations ripped off the house and destroyed on my lawn. I decided to take some revenge. Starting that night, which was the beginning of a really bad cold snap, I watered his car, using the garden hose to spray it down, from 10 PM to 5 AM every 30 minutes or so. By the next morning, a thick layer of ice covered his Fast and Furious mobile, pinning it to his driveway. I hid the garden hose in my garage before anyone saw it. When Chad saw the state of his car, his rage was legendary. He screamed, yelled, and woke up the entire neighborhood with his antics. The police and fire department came, did nothing, and left. Chad's friends tried to use various power tools to free his car, and one of them actually cut into one of the tires and fender using a sawzall. About a week later, the ice had thinned enough that the car popped free. Chad broke the windshield trying to remove large chunks of ice. That is the best, isn't it? When you're trying to sort of help a bad situation and you just make it worse. So good. That spring, my work contract ended and I moved away, free of Chad. I decided to share this story as I'm still good friends with my previous landlord, and he told me that Chad and his friends are now in jail after they got caught robbing a convenience store just after the recent holidays. Why does that not surprise me? Well, all I can say to this is that Chad and his pals are just terrible people. I do not understand why the previous tenants let him use their garage. Maybe, to be fair, they're just lovely people and actually weren't ever going to use it and were like, sure thing. But I mean, Chad just should have felt so lucky and like grateful that he was allowed to use somebody else's property for his stuff. But no, he said, actually, I'm just going to break in and steal your stuff as well. Just like taking liberties. Yeah, I mean, this guy and his mates probably just do deserve to end up in jail. And I hope that happens. I don't think there's any more I can say than that. Good revenge, but I feel like more needs to be done. Yeah, it's tough about his dad, but that doesn't excuse his actions now. Now moving on to our final story of this one. And I've just had a quick scan through, guys. And I've noticed that one of the characters is a little bit close to home. Anyway, I ruined my ex-best friend's reputation for spreading rumors about me. I just remembered this story from high school, and I thought you guys would find some enjoyment out of it. When I was a sophomore in high school, my best friend of 5 years, let's call her Sarah, blocked me on everything and refused to acknowledge my presence. When I tried to talk to her, she would immediately walk away. If I was speaking in class, she'd put her head down and cover her ears. When I had mutual friends ask her if I did something wrong, she would just say, I just got tired of her. She's annoying and loud. I have a more chill aura and she's ruining my vibe. Now, you know what, guys? When somebody says they have a chill aura, 99% of the time, it definitely means they have a chill aura. Not embarrassing. I mean, not one of the most embarrassing things you could possibly say about yourself ever. Humility. Yeah? Learn some, Sarah. Anyway, let's carry on. Her other reasons for cutting me off, according to mutual friends, were 1. I was too clingy for always expecting to sit next to her at lunch. 2. I was too needy for wanting to call her after school once or twice a week. And 3. Her mum, whom I had only met once when I was 11 during a field trip, didn't like me. I was heartbroken, but I accepted her choice. I'm not going to beg for someone to love me if they do not want to. However, when a mutual friend told me that Sarah was telling people that I was fat, ugly and disgusting, and also spreading around my SA story from the year prior and telling people that I was 100% lying about it. We went to a small school of only 300 people, including staff and teachers, so news travels quickly. I saw red. You don't have to like me, but spreading false info about a deeply traumatic experience and saying I lied about it? So on to the revenge. Sarah was a deeply delusional person when it came to relationships. In freshman year of high school, she had a huge crush on our 25-year-old married English teacher. She bought baby clothes, embroidered his children's names on them. What? Embroidered his children's names on them and then put them in a box at the foot of her bed. That is the most that is so twisted. What the hell? I mean, that's not even weird. That's just downright deranged. Sorry. When I asked her why the actual F she would do that, she said it was for when she turned 18 and she could finally steal him from his wife. Never mind the fact that the clothes would obviously then be too small for his kids by that time, but that is freaking crazy. After she moved on from our teacher, she then attached herself to a boy in our grade. We'll call him Jack. Now, I will be honest here, guys. This was the name that I saw when I just quickly scanned this story. And I have to interject here and say, I do not blame Sarah for this at all. This has happened to me multiple times in my life, and it will happen to me again. Nothing I can do about it. It's just my name and how cool I am. I like to think that at times it's because I have a very chill aura about me. I might be wrong. Anyway, Jack was in a relationship of 5 or 6 months with his girlfriend, Tiff. Sarah was convinced that she could home wreck them and made a public Instagram account to post poems about Jack. Is this story about me? I'm not sure. Not too bad, right? Well, actually, these poems were about how Tiff was an awful person and she deserved to die so that Sarah and Jack could be together. The only layer of anonymity in this account was the fact that the name was only her initials. Jesus. I knew about the account, and once I heard what she'd been spreading around about my appearance and assault, my 15-year-old self knew exactly how to get back at her. I knew Jack's sister from a club that we did a few years prior. We weren't friends, but were definitely friendly. One morning, I saw her in the halls, and I asked if Jack was still dating Tiff. She said, yeah, why? I told her, oh, that's so weird because I actually found this Instagram account that Sarah made that made me think that maybe they were a thing now. I showed her the account, and of course, she took screenshots of everything and sent it to Jack. 5 hours later, the account was deleted, and Sarah didn't come to school for 2 days. I heard from mutual friends that Jack and Tiff both sent her long, not so nicely worded texts about her behaviour and the account. Sarah got a reputation for the rest of high school for being crazy, delusional, and boy crazy. Jack's sister never told anyone that I was the one who told her about the account, so nobody ever found out that I was the one who told her. We are now in our early 20s, and since high school, I have lost 100 pounds. Wow. Had a glow up, and by the way, she's put this in air quotes. She's not saying, I suppose, that she's now really good looking, but yeah, probably had a glow up. If you lose 100 pounds, that's absolutely insane. Have a loving fiance that I started dating senior year of high school, a well-paying career, and a large support system of loving friends. Sarah, on the other hand, has never been in a relationship. I would argue against that. I think she's been in a couple of relationships with her old English teacher and Jack. They were just pretty one-sided relationships. Anyway, she has no friends. She dropped out of college junior year. She lives with her parents and still can't drive. Hang on a second. I'm not in a relationship currently. I do have friends that didn't drop out of college junior year, but I am also living with my parents right now, and I also don't drive. I'm feeling slightly attacked here. Anyway, was I a jerk? Definitely. Was it the right thing to do? Probably not. Do I regret it? A little bit. But at least no one believed her anymore when she talked about how much I was lying about one of the most traumatic things that has ever happened to me. And that is the main point, I think, at the end there. Like, to lie about that is just ridiculous. And when I say lie, I of course mean that Sarah is the one lying, not OP, obviously. I mean, that is crazy. She is obviously, as I said, a deranged individual anyway. But there is a limit, isn't there? And obviously we got to that when she said that you were fat, ugly, and disgusting. That's just bullying. But on top of that, spreading that your essay, well, first of all, spreading around your essay story, which I presume not everyone in the school knew about, obviously, And then saying you lied about it on top of that. So first of all, telling people about what your actual trauma is, ridiculous. And then saying, oh, actually, no, but she just did it for attention. Or maybe not that, but just none of it's true, is genuinely crazy. I think that should be illegal. Like bullying is one thing, but then like telling people about someone's trauma, which is, you know, obviously illegal in itself, the trauma, then saying they lied about it. Like that, I know you're only like 15 or whatever here, but is that not some sort of like defamation? Like people genuinely would unalive themselves for stuff like this. That has to be illegal. It has to be, you know? Sometimes it's weird. I feel like people only get in trouble when people unalive themselves or serious things happen to the individual that people have bullied or said stuff like this. And yeah, I hold my hands up. Like sometimes I do think back to some things that I might have said when I was young and dumb and think, Jesus, that was a terrible thing to say, or I shouldn't have acted like that because it could have had this effect. Same on to me, you know. But, and I'm not for 1 second saying, oh, they were 15. You can't, like, you got to allow them whatever a little bit. No, I mean, this is crazy. And I do think that like stuff should be done about that. She should be either expelled at the very least or like, you know, charged. It's mental. Now, final thing to say is you should not feel bad at all about anything you've done here. As I've just mentioned, like she's created this life for herself, and you like disclosing to Jack's sister that it was actually Sarah's account is not the reason why she has no friends and no life and, you know, whatever right now. That isn't the reason. She's done that to herself. Yes, it's a small part of it, but that isn't the reason. Like this would have happened anyway, whether you intervened or not. So I don't know, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. What a crazy individual and what a crazy episode. It's been a long one, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below if you prefer these longer episodes. They do tend to perform better on my channel. More of you guys listen and watch them, so you know, I think you guys do enjoy the longer ones. But yeah, let me know. They obviously take longer to make, and the edit takes longer for editor Steve-O. So we'll only do them if you guys actively do prefer them to the shorter ones. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed the longer ones, and I'll catch you very soon with some more.